We're doing HomeGirls episode 7, trailers, modular homes, and tiny homes. So let's go ahead and get started with the video.
Yes.
Maybe. And of course, if you want to see the video, it will be on the official podcast of this.
YouTube.
On the YouTube.
Yeah, on the YouTube.
Podcast YouTube.
It's about 120 square feet or so.
I'm at about 140 square feet.
It's got less square footage than a roll of toilet paper. This is my little house. I've been living here for about 8 years. Let me give you the 5-minute tour. It doesn't take any longer than that. My big 3-bedroom house that I lived in didn't really fit me anymore. So I wanted to try something different. So this is my kitchen. I have like a 1-burner stove where I cook all of my most important meals, like soup. One of the biggest changes for me was letting go of some of my autonomy. All of a sudden I'm 40-something years old and I'm kind of tucked in somebody else's yard. And that was a big shift for me. I don't have running water, so I don't have a shower, so I shower at work or I shower at the gym. I had to get used to not buying whatever book I saw that I loved or new clothes whenever I saw them. You know, I had to kind of put myself on a material diet simply because I didn't have space to store stuff. And that wasn't always easy.
So I like how, first of all, that is a tiny, tiny home.
Yeah, it is. That's really small.
That is tinier.
I was surprised by how tiny that one is. I was like, oh my gosh.
She said it was smaller than a roll of toilet paper, and she wasn't lying. Like, it was the size of a walk-in closet.
Yeah, it literally looks like my closet space.
Yeah, it's like half the size of this room, maybe smaller.
I think it's smaller. I don't even think it's half the size of this room.
Yeah, so I love tiny homes, but that made me claustrophobic. And especially because it doesn't have any running water.
Yeah.
You can buy a really nice tiny home now where you don't need to sacrifice any of the luxuries. And this lady's like living in her storage shed.
Yeah, I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Another thing I don't like is she's living in someone's backyard.
Yeah, she said she was in someone's backyard.
Yeah. When I think tiny homes, or if I was to live in one, I'd want to be one of those where it's like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I don't want to be in anyone's backyard.
Yeah, I don't want to be in anyone's backyard.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
So I'm Mary.
And I'm Macy's.
And we're the HomeGirls. And today we're talking about trailers, modular homes, and tiny homes. And I am so excited for this episode because I'm obsessed with tiny homes. Are you obsessed with tiny homes?
I'm not obsessed, but I know it's like a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
Have you ever seen the YouTube channel Living Big in a Tiny House? Oh my God, check it out. It's so addicting.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's this guy who has a dream job traveling around New Zealand and sometimes the world. He's from New Zealand, so like obviously with COVID, he's kind of been like stuck in New Zealand. But before that, he was like traveling the world, and he goes and like visits people's tiny homes.
That's pretty cool.
I know. And I'm just like, that's a dream job.
And
And
he just gets to look at tiny homes all the time.
And he lives in a tiny
Yeah.
home. His is one of the extreme ones, kind of like what she has.
Oh, like really tiny.
Yeah, his is an extreme tiny home. But some of them are really, really nice.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, Chris and I almost bought a tiny home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on Lake Conroe or Lake Houston. There was a tiny home for sale, and it was 500 or 600 square feet, so it was on the larger end.
Yeah.
But what the cool thing was like you had the tiny home, but there was a covered porch off of it that was like the same size.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you had the home itself, which was tiny, but then you had all this living space because you had this covered porch.
Just like hang out.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it was really neat. It was a neat house, but they advertised it as having like you could build a dock, but the water was like 6 inches. Oh. Yeah.
What are we gonna do here?
Yeah, definitely not waterfront. Definitely could not build a dock in that. So, sorry, I got some digression there. There is a widespread belief that trailers and tiny homes are going to be the homes of the future as single-family homes suffer from low inventory and high prices, especially because most people can pay cash for their trailers or tiny homes. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And that's actually why that living big in a tiny house, why he can do so much in New Zealand, because apparently it's impossible to buy a house in New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. People love living there because it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of good, like, societal benefits, but they just can't afford a house. So there's a lot of people living in tiny homes in New Zealand.
That's interesting.
I know. You might be wondering what the difference is between trailers, modular homes, and tiny homes. And it is a bit confusing because there is some overlap.
Yeah, a little bit.
And we'll talk about that as we go forward. But first, let's go into the history.
Yes.
You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
I'm going to split it up into 3 sections. So we'll do trailers, modular homes, and tiny homes.
Yeah.
That way nothing gets confused.
Okay.
We'll start with the trailer, which actually I'm supposed to call a mobile home.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like I was like, when I was doing research, I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not just like, it's like a mobile home. Yeah.
Yes. And sorry, I can't get, my seat is like, I can't get angled right. Yeah. So after 1976, the government doesn't want us to call them trailers anymore. We're supposed to call them mobile homes, but the colloquialism is still trailer. Yeah. And trailer I often home. Just call it trailer. Yeah. People, when you say mobile homes, people get confused about what it is because some people think like, oh, is it an RV?
Yeah.
You know, like, but so when you say trailer, people understand like,
or like trailer home.
Yeah. Yeah. All of that, like trailer home or trailer, it's supposed to be called mobile home now, but probably for this, we'll just keep calling it trailer.
Yeah.
Now, first example of mobile homes can be traced back to the Romani or Roma people called the Gypsies. You know some of them think Gypsies is racist. Sometimes you have Romani who prefer to be called Gypsies. It really just depends, I think, on the tribe. But the formal name is Romani. And they've been traveling in mobile homes since the 1500s.
Dang, that's a really long time.
Yes. Have you ever seen like a Romani? Like, it's much smaller. It's not like anywhere the size of a trailer now. It was more like a covered wagon that was also a house.
Oh, okay.
Have you watched Peaky Blinders?
So I started the first episode.
Okay.
But I heard it's really good. I have like some friends that watch it.
First of all, Tommy Shelby. But second of all, they're a Romani. So every once in a while you'll see like people living in those little houses. Yeah. And they were pulled by horses.
Ooh.
So in America, we actually see mobile homes or like trailers that were built in the 1870s. And these were movable beachfront properties built on the Outer Banks region of North Carolina. And these houses were moved by teams of horses as well. But they were more vacation things. People weren't going to live in them permanently.
Yeah.
Now, what we consider a trailer or a mobile home today came about in around 1926 with the automobile pulled trailer or the trailer coach. This was designed more like an RV. So again, these weren't permanent living dwellings, but they were houses on wheels. And people would pull them in their newfangled automobiles. I can't imagine how slow and janky and how loud that must have been.
Yeah.
After World War II, of course, we have the baby boom, right?
Yes.
And this is when we start to see mobile homes as communities after World War II, just because there's like a housing shortage.
Like the RV parks?
Yes, like a mobile, like a trailer park.
Yeah, trailer park.
Because people needed places to live. And for the lower middle class, this provided cheap and quickly built housing. And it also, because at this point in the 40s, the homes are more mobile. So today, a lot of trailers are not quite as mobile as we think, you know, like technically they have a wheel bed, but a lot of people don't move their trailers. In the 40s, at this point, the house is still like you could move it.
Yeah.
So in the 40s, the average trailer was a width of 8 feet and 20 feet in length. So 20 feet long, 8 feet wide. They had up to 3 to 4 separate sleeping sections, but no bathrooms.
I don't know about that.
That's a little weird. By 1949, the length had gone up to 30 feet, and then you start getting bathrooms. Okay. So
they got bigger.
Yeah, beginning of the 40s, no bathrooms. End of the 40s, you start to see bathrooms. And also at the end of the 40s, by the 1950s, you start to see what we call the double wide trailer. In 1976, June of 1976, the Congress passed the National Manufactured Housing Construction and Safety Act, which assured that all homes were built to national standards. And then in 1980, I was wrong. It's 1980 when they changed the name from, I I'm wrong again.
Okay.
1976, they changed it from trailer to mobile home. And in 1980, they actually changed it from mobile home to manufactured home.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was completely wrong. We're supposed to be calling it manufactured home.
No one's going to call it that.
Yeah, I got it confused.
No one's going to call it that.
And basically, from 1980 onward, with the title of manufactured homes, they have to be built to really, really strict standards. And that also depends on what climate. So trailers are built for their climates.
Yeah.
So you couldn't take a trailer from Wisconsin and bring it to Texas. And likewise, you couldn't take a trailer from Texas and bring it to Wisconsin. Yeah. And I don't know if you're going to talk about this. There's a little sticker in the mobile home that tells you what type of, where it's supposed to be.
That's cool.
Yeah. Let's move to modular homes. The first modular home was called a kit home, and they were originally sold by Sears. And yeah, that's at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s. The Sears catalog started selling the houses. And the first Sears catalog was 68 pages long and provided a selection of more than 44 modular homes designed ranging in price from $695 to $4,119, which back then was quite a bit of money. Besides the 44 home designs, the company also offered a schoolhouse design. You could order your schoolhouse too. Between 1908 and 1940, Sears sold over 100,000 homes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, including the one my friend used to live in when she lived in Fredericksburg back in like the early zeros and tens, back in the tens actually. Her house was built in 1932 and it was a kit home. Super duper cute. It was the cutest little house. I mean, it actually might have qualified if you do the measurements for a tiny home. We keep kicking each other.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry.
Just gonna accept it.
Yeah.
It might have been a little too big. I think it was about 700 square feet, which made it a little smidgen too big.
Yeah, it's like a little apartment.
Yeah. But it was super duper cute. Her house was so cute.
Nice.
She actually got married in the backyard.
That's so nice.
I know, it was very cute.
That's so cute.
So cute. So the modular home buyer could expect their kits to arrive via the railroad, and it had 30,000 pieces with more than 70 pages of instruction. So it was like IKEA for your house.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I know. I'm fascinated. I would love that idea.
Yeah.
And actually, you can still do it. You can still buy home kits.
Yeah.
You remember the Duggars? You don't know who the Duggars are? Oh my God.
I don't.
19 kids and counting. That lady who had like 19 kids. I'm choking again because I'm shocked. I'm shocked you don't know who the Duggars are.
I don't know.
I'm literally just choking on air. In shock. He went away for child porn. The brother did.
Oh my God.
This just happened.
Oh, it just happened?
Like 2 years ago. How do you not know who the Duggars are?
I don't.
Okay. Well, go home tonight.
I'll do some research.
Yes. And do TLC 19 Kids and Counting. I'm so sorry.
Maybe I have heard of them and like.
Let me show. I gotta pull a picture up.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna keep choking, so I need to be able to cough this out.
I'm more of a visual person. So.
Yeah. Okay. So let's Google 19 Kids and Counting. I don't know why that made me like choke to death. His name was the dad's name. Excuse me, I'm not on the microphone. The dad's name was Jim Bob, and the mom was named Michelle. These people.
Oh, okay.
And they all started with like. They all had names with J names.
Yeah.
And then it was like this older brother. This guy, the older brother, went to prison for child molestation, child porn. Yeah. What I was going to say is, I thought you knew this. They live in this giant house. And in the beginning, when it was just like 17 kids and counting, when TLC first picked them up, they built a kit house. So the giant house, it's like a 16,000 square foot house.
Jesus.
They bought as a kit and they put together.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you mean, what I was tying that in there is you can still buy kit homes to house your
That's crazy.
giant
family.
Weird family. Yeah. So anyway,
too many kids. That's too many kids.
ECs has never heard of the Duggars. All right, just end the podcast right there.
Yeah.
We gotta go check out 19 Kids and Counting.
Yeah.
So in the 1950s, once again, we have the baby boom. So we're back in the baby boom here. Modular homes became very popular again. So there's kind of a drop off when World War II starts for obvious reasons. People aren't building homes.
People are busy.
Well, yeah, and all the supplies would have been going to the war.
Yeah, exactly.
In the 1950s, the veterans are coming home. You need more housing. And the highway system means that the suburbs are going out farther and farther. So now people are buying property with no home on it. So they're ordering home kits. In 1958, two-section modular home was produced conforming to an applicable building code. And this is actually considered when the formal modular home industry was formally born. So the modular home industry we see today goes back to 1958.
Not that long, but
so like the kit home was more of like an IKEA thing, or you would get like 1,000 pieces and you would put it together.
Horrible.
Yeah, right.
That sounds absolutely horrible.
An actual modular home kind of like arrives folded up, and then they kind of like unfold
It's like
it.
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's much easier. So it's by 1958 when we start to see that type of modular home. The popularity of modular homes continued to grow into the 1970s, and this finally led to some government regulation. So once again, 1976, the same year they changed trailers to mobile homes, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development building code was created for modular homes. And it set certain standards that the modular homes have to meet in the factory before they can be shipped out.
That's good.
This code was updated in 1994.
So that's the last time it was updated?
Yes.
Wow.
So basically, I'm going to start choking again. I don't know why I choke every time we do this.
That's true. This was happening last time too, like at the end.
Yeah.
We got to go.
I'm going to need to like go dig out a cough drop. In the factory, the modular home has to meet certain standards before it can go out. Finally, we have the tiny home. Now, the history of the tiny home, I am going to debate here because a lot of the websites, I shouldn't say some, a lot of the sources that I used were saying that, oh, well, the tiny home's been around forever. They can be found in huts, tents, igloos, wigwams, Sioux, Inuit, Samoans, yurts in Mongolia, which I disagree because these type of homes, if you went back in history and asked the person, they wouldn't have considered these tiny homes. They would have just considered
this was just their house.
That was just their house. Yeah.
They just happened to be small.
This is an example of when we put like modern standards to historical, like our modern values on historical standards.
It wasn't actually like, oh, this is a tiny home. Like,
yeah.
It was just
and these people were nomadic.
Yeah.
So, and while a lot of people with tiny homes are nomadic now, I just think it's offensive to these people to say that they were living in tiny homes.
Yeah.
Because that was not
the intention.
That was literally their home.
Yeah.
It was just their home. The tiny home movement is probably the most recent thing we've ever discussed on this podcast.
Yeah, I actually saw a little bit about that. I was like, there's a movement?
Yes, the movement
Like,
was started in the 1970s by a man named Alan Wexler, who pursued the idea of living in a compact space, which helped him promote his art. So he was an artist. Of course, it would start with an artist.
Of course.
Wouldn't it? In 1973, the authors Lloyd Kahn and Bob Easton released a book called Shelter, which advanced the idea of living in a compact space, just like the idea of give up all your worldly goods and move into this small.
Yeah, because I get, a lot of people that live in tiny homes have to reduce
a lot,
like all their stuff, their clothes. Like.
Yes. But because it was started in the 70s, a lot of people just kind of wrote it off as like a weird hippie thing.
Oh, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Like the 70s.
And also in the 80s, you have this kind of Reaganomics where it was all like buy. Like the shopping mall, the houses get bigger. You have to have a game room all of a sudden. You know, it was just about having more of everything as capitalism kind of went out of control in the 80s. Yeah. So tiny homes is kind of a slow, like a weird hippie thing. No offense to weird hippies, until the 1990s. So in the 1990s, you have Gen X, you have this grunge movement. People kind of turn against that idea of Reaganomics.
Yeah. And
another artist named Andrea Zittel used the concept of a tiny home in her work, which became another inspiration for the trend. And in 1997, an author named Sarah Susank, or Susanank, I apologize, Sarah, if I've said your name wrong.
Yeah.
She published a book called The so big house, which promoted the environmental benefit of the small house that later led to today's tiny home crusade. Because today it's not so much about minimalism. It still is about minimalism, but it's a lot more about climate friendly changes.
Yeah.
Getting rid of running water, living off the grid, that type of thing.
I know. I think some like tiny homes, you can have solar panels, right?
You can, yeah. So in 2002, Greg Johnson, Shay Solomon, Nigel Valdez, and Jay Schaefer created a society called the Small House Society.
I love that.
I know. 10 years later, in 2012, a company called the Tumbleweed Tiny House Company was founded by one of those people, Jay Schaefer, who decided he really wanted to bring tiny homes to the forefront of our consciousness. He also created another company called Four Lights Tiny House Company that actually made designs that people could buy. He popularized tiny homes by creating his first design, which was only 96 square feet.
That's nothing.
That was like what that lady lived in.
Yeah.
Super, like from the video. Super
little closet.
Small. Yeah. He then moved forward with creating tiny homes on wheels. And then the other founders of the society, Nigel Valdez and Shay Solomon, published their guides of the small house movement in 2006. And Greg Johnson published his memoir in 2008. So there was clearly a schism between all these like 21st century tiny home movement people. Yeah. They all kind of split off and created their own sub movements. Kind of some scandal there.
Wrote some books.
Did you know Texas is one of the most popular places to have tiny homes?
I did not know, but I feel like it makes sense just because Texas is big.
Yes. There's a lot of wide open spaces and you can get land for really cheap out west.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're going to be living off the grid.
Nothing to do.
Yeah. You better be self-sustaining out the nose, but you can still get a lot of land. In fact, there's a city in North Texas that's just tiny homes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. The city was dying. I should look that up. I should look up the name while you're doing yours. I watched the YouTube video when I was researching this. I should have kept it. Basically the city was dying. So the mayor was like, let's just invite people to buy plots of land for their tiny homes. And he did. And it like blew up.
That's cool.
Yeah. And people moved there because you still have access to a doctor and a grocery store. And like you still have
important things.
You don't have to be completely off the grid, but you get your own plot of land, your tiny home.
Yeah. And you don't have to live in someone's backyard.
Exactly. That's the what? So in 2013, the city of Austin, Texas, wanted to help the homeless. So they created the tiny house solution, which I will say probably didn't work because if you've been to Austin, it's full of homeless people. And then in 2015, the Tiny House Collaborative was created, which was promoted and founded to help educate others on the fine design of tiny homes. And finally, in 2016, a legislation was passed in Kalamazoo, Michigan, that allowed tiny homes to be altered to better those that wanted to live in a smaller functioning lifestyle. So basically, there is no federal regulation of a tiny home compared to a modular home and a mobile home and a house and a house. Yeah. But, and they can be considered anything. I have a really good video that kind of tells you there's 6 different types of tiny homes. Are you going to talk about that? There's like tiny homes on wheels, tiny homes on foundation. People still live in yurts. Those are now considered tiny homes, unless you live in Mongolia, in which case it's still your house.
Yeah.
If you live in a yurt in the United States, that just means you're a white person who lives in a tent.
Yes.
I want to make that clear. But yeah, there's all sorts of different types of tiny homes, and there's even like tiny tree houses that people live in.
That's cute.
I know, super cute.
I want a tree house.
Yeah, when I went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, we stayed in a tiny home tree house.
That's so cool.
I know.
I've been there. I've been to Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's kind of random.
Yeah, it is random, but it's actually very nice.
It's pretty.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
It's very pretty. But yeah, they had a tiny house. We stayed in a tiny house, tree house. The only thing is they didn't quite anchor it right. So whenever you walked, you could kind of feel
a little wobbly.
Yeah, a little wobbly. A little like Baba Yaga on chicken feet kind of vibe to it. So anyway, that's my
cool.
Nice spiel.
That's interesting.
I know. It's really interesting. And I think it's actually really fun because it's one of the more modern things.
No, it is.
We've discussed.
Yeah, tiny homes for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's
more of a white
thing.
people
Yeah.
middle-class white people who think they're making a point by living in a tiny home. No offense.
No offense.
I still think it's really cool, but I mean,
think it's
come
cool,
on.
but like I'm not doing it. Like
Let's call it what it is. It's a white people thing. So
yes. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about some pros and cons. I love talking about the pros and cons. I'll start with the modular home. So Mary talked about it earlier. A modular home tends to be fabricated in a factory in an assembly line format. So each section is built separately before being shipped to the site for final assembly. Schedules are usually adhered to because they don't have to deal with the effects of weather. So it's just easier to build the houses, I guess. They're in a factory. Yeah. They don't got to worry about, is it going to rain today? You know, like, is the weather going to be bad?
Yeah, and most of them will require that you dig your own foundation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wow. Some companies will dig a foundation, but most of them will require...
They just want to go set up the house.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, so the quality control is also easier to manage. Once they complete the modular home, it is covered for protection while being shipped and waiting on site to be assembled on site. So let's talk about some pros and cons. So I'll talk about the pros first. Let's see. Finding finance. Oh, wait. This is not a pro. This is a con. You can only... Okay, let's talk about cons. I think I confused them when I wrote them on here. So finding financing can be more difficult. It's not as easy as, like, getting a mortgage on a house. Yeah, it's not the same.
It's not... I think for most of them, it's not a traditional mortgage. And most of the companies actually will have their own in-house lending. The other thing you need to remember is you're probably not going to get the interest rate that traditional mortgages are going to get
for a mortgage. Yeah. Also finding land with the proper zoning, because I guess depends where you live.
Yes, really. Some places will not let you have modular homes.
Some places won't let you have modular homes. And then aside from the price of the home, like Mary said, you might have to do the foundation, landscaping, utilities, etc.
Yep.
You can only detect areas after your house gets delivered. So if something is wrong with it.
Yeah, there's no home inspection.
Yeah,
you could. Yeah. After they finish building it.
But it's like, what can you do? Like, after you
exactly, because at that point your loan is typically closed, or your option period's over.
It's not like buying a house from somebody else and you try to negotiate it. It's like, if it's messed up, that's what you got.
That's it. Yep.
So and then some pros. Modular homes are built in a factory setting away from weather impacts. Quality control is easier, and material or labor shortages are not an issue. Resale value depends on location. Home construction of modular buildings are high quality. Windows and insulation are energy efficient, so it helps conserve energy.
It can.
The speed of development can be quick once they install foundations and utility, because then they just set up the house. They're typically, I don't know how accurate this is, but 15% less expensive compared to stick-built homes.
Yes, but you have to consider you got to buy the property, you got to pour the foundation. The land, so yes and no.
Yeah. You got to do the math. Yeah. To really see, like, is this worth it? And manufacturers sometimes offer home finance or construction loans. So it's not the same as, like, buying a house, but yeah. So in the trailer home, mobile homes, also known as manufactured homes, like we talked about, are built in a factory and placed on a trailer. Is it chassis? Is that chassis?
Yeah, chassis.
Chassis to allow them to be moved. Mobile homes are sometimes placed in a mobile home park or on leased land. In these cases, like, the owner will, like, rent land instead of renting a house. So, but they own the mobile home itself. So then some pros and cons. Buying a mobile home is cheaper than buying a single family home. Clearly,
yes,
it's a lot smaller. I think my mom might She might have, like, a trailer home, but it's not on wheels. Like, it's just like.
So I wanted to ask you about that without being like, do you live in a trailer? Because that's sometimes what it comes out like. You told me once she lives, but it's like, does it have a foundation?
Yeah, it has, like, a foundation, but I don't think it's like.
Are you sure? Like, well, yeah. So sometimes, and I'll talk about this, you can actually sink the chassis into concrete and make a permanent home. So it might be a trailer that was sunk.
Because, like, the vents are, like, on the ground, you know? Like,
it might be a trailer that was sunk into the...
I think that's probably what it is. Because my mom does live, like, it's not a house. Like, it is not a house.
Is it a double wide?
What does that mean?
That means 2 trailers put together.
I don't think so. It's just like one long house.
Do you have a picture of it?
I think so. I'm like, we gotta look.
Let's figure
I know
out.
it's not a house. Like it's not a regular house. Like it's not. My mom sent me actually a picture the other day.
Does she own the land then?
I think they bought it from somebody. Like it was for sale.
Okay, so they bought the land with the trailer. Yes, that looks like a single wide sunk on a concrete.
Like on the concrete.
Yeah, it looks like it was a single wide sunk on the concrete. That's a cute house.
Yeah, it is very cute. Yeah, she just painted her garage door.
Aww.
Like the Puerto Rican flag.
That's fun.
But yeah, so I have some experience. I didn't live there though. That was like after I graduated high school. But yeah, mobile homes can also be quite roomy, so you can get more for like a cheaper price because you know some people can't afford a big house, but if they buy a mobile home, they could afford a lot more. Yeah, you know, a lot more space. This was also a con. It can be a transitional space. Yeah. So like if you want to buy land, but you're not ready to build the house yet, you can get a mobile home and live in there like while your house is being built or between moves. And
Chris did that when his parents. His mom and stepdad built a large house. It took years to build, and they lived in a trailer on the property while the house. Yeah,
it's like
he hated it.
Oh, he hated it.
He hated it.
It's a temporary. It can be a temporary solution if you have to wait for your actual house to be built. So some cons is like your mobile home may go down in value. Yeah, it's not gonna be worth that much. You might have to pay a lot in rent, like for the land, if you don't own the land and you just like own the house. And then same thing, financing is gonna be different, like compared to a traditional mortgage. Yeah, and then the last one is a tiny home. So tiny homes can be between 100, 400 square feet. A tiny home rarely exceeds 500 square feet. But like we talked about, there are some big ones.
There are. You know, when I looked up what is the actual correct size of a tiny home, I can't find it. Nobody can decide what the cutoff is.
There's not like a set like thing. But for reference, the median size of a new single family home sold in 2015 was 2,500 square feet. Yeah. So 100 so it to is 400 a difference. Yeah. Is nothing. So if you need a visual, you could fit 144 tiny houses on a football field. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
144 houses. So then the pros and cons, tiny homes cost less to build. Of course, they're very small. You'll end up saving a lot more over time just because, like, of course, you're not wasting as much. Yeah. You're not buying as much.
Bills are cheaper.
The bills are cheaper. Like you could go solar in a tiny home if you want. There's less clutter. If you're, like, living in a tiny home with someone else, you get more time together. You're stuck with each other. That's a pro, or it could be a con. You know, you can pick up and go whenever.
Hypothetically,
but you do need a truck.
Yeah, so some are not
mobile. Yeah, it depends what kind you get. Yeah. But if you get a mobile one, you can just attach it to your truck. But you need a truck. So if you don't have a truck, so then the cons: it's almost impossible to get a mortgage for a tiny home. Land purchases are just as pricey as real estate purchases. Tiny house laws vary and aren't always easy to comply with. And a lot of tiny homes, there's no toilet.
Yes. Yeah. Or there is, but it's like composting toilet, which apparently aren't as gross as they sound. Yeah. I've never used one, but
it is extra work.
Yeah. So like a composting toilet, every time you go, you like turn a dial on the side, and then
you like leak it out, right, or something.
Well, it collects in a bag, and then you like
throw it away.
Well, no, I think it's composting, so I think it actually turns into breaks down into compost.
Okay, so you can just like,
I don't know,
throw it anywhere.
Some people have bins where they put it to let it kind of like ferment. Yeah. But I do know that it's like a wheel, and like every time you go, I think it's like, not to get too graphic, but I think it's like number 2, not number 1. You turn the wheel and it like folds it into the bag.
Interesting.
I don't know. I don't really know the science because I'm too terrified
to figure that out.
Yes, too terrified to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little scary.
And it's my turn. Of course, I start choking again. Literally, I was fine.
I know. Yeah, she was fine the whole time that I was talking.
I don't know if it's like, is it anxiety? I don't know.
Stage fright.
Yeah, stage fright. Every time it's my turn to talk, I start choking like psychosomatically. Okay. So we'll start at the top again with trailers.
Yes.
We're going to keep breaking it down in sections. Big thing to remember is that campers and RVs are not trailers.
Yeah, they're not the same.
They are considered vehicles. So you move them. Yeah.
Move them.
So even if you live in a mobile home park, but you live in a camper or an RV, you don't really live in a mobile home.
Yeah.
So that means camper and RVs usually fall under like your Department of Motor Vehicles.
It's a car.
Yeah.
Vehicle.
You have to get like a license plate for it and everything like that.
Yeah.
Even if it's your primary residence.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned, you can call a trailer a mobile home or a manufactured home. These houses are always manufactured in a factory and then transported to the owner. And to be considered a manufactured home, the house has to sit on a wheeled chassis, and the chassis must be permanently attached. And so that in case of your mom's, it probably is on a chassis. They just sunk it
in the ground.
Okay. Yeah. Because what you can do is you can either leave the mobile home above ground and then put like a decorative cover around it. You've probably seen that, like trailers that have like decorative covers, or you can sink it into cement to create a foundation, but it's not like a real.
I've definitely seen it. Like where my mom lives, a lot of people live in like trailers.
Yeah. So trailers come in 3 sizes: single, double, and triple. A single is, my infographic is not pulling up. A single is 12 to 18 feet in width, 40 to 80 feet in length, and then 480 to 1,444 in square footage. A double is 20 to 36 feet in width, 32 to 80 feet in length, and 640 to 2,560 in square footage. That's pretty big.
Yeah, that's huge.
A triple, this is insane, 30 to 54 feet in width, 32 to 80 feet in length, 960 to 3,600 or more square feet.
You can get like a mobile mansion.
A mobile mansion, yes, you could. I've been in some nice mobile homes before. My Chris's family friends own one out in oil field where they do their hunting, and it is gorgeous. You walk in, there's like granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors. Nice. Yeah, it's like a legitimate house, you know. It's nuts.
Like if you took a picture of the inside, you wouldn't think like, oh, I'm in a trailer.
Yeah. Like I didn't know what to expect because they're like, oh, we're staying in their trailer, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be roughing it, and then we pull up and it's like this fancy like house. So you need to check with your state, but in the state of Texas, a dwelling has to meet 5 criteria to be taxed as a mobile home. It has to be constructed on or after June 15th of 1976. Remember, that was that year.
The cutoff.
It has to be built on a permanent chassis. It has to be built to be used as a temporary or permanent dwelling. It has to be transportable. So if you have a double or triple wide, it can be transported in more than one section. It has to include plumbing, electrical, heating, and AC. And typically when you buy the mobile home, a sales tax of the purchase price must be paid when acquiring the mobile home direct from the factory, which in the state of Texas is set at 5% of 65% or 0.0325 of the sales price stated on the invoice. You have to pay personal, and remember, this is just in Texas, so definitely look up in your own state. You have to pay personal property tax if you do not own the land that the mobile home is placed on. But if you do own the land, you have to pay real property tax on the land and the mobile home. So there's a lot of different things in Texas. Mobile homes have to be approved by the Texas Department of Housing and the federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. The home's going to be inspected at the factory where it's going to get a Housing Urban Development sticker of approval. Okay. Remember that?
Yeah, the little sticker.
Yeah, and what we talked about, the federal guidelines. Mm-hmm. Now, you can get an FHA or a VA loan on a mobile home, but they have to be inspected before you, like during the option period.
Okay, before you buy it, right?
Yes. Okay. This can be done by an FHA, VA, or HUD certified inspector. And usually this involves an inspection of the quality of the mobile home and what foundation it will sit on. And most FHA and VA loans will require that the mobile home sit on a poured concrete foundation.
Okay. They
will not give you an FHA or a VA loan on a mobile home.
Like if it's like on wheels.
Yeah, it has to be permanently sunk into concrete. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But other than FHA or VA loans, you actually don't have to get your mobile home inspected. So if you buy a mobile home cash or whatever, you're not required to get it inspected.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. And as I mentioned, there's going to be a sticker in the mobile home. And usually it's like in a utility area, or sometimes it's in the laundry room. Or like where the water heater is. Sometimes it's in there. And the sticker is going to tell you what part of the United States
it's from.
It's from and where it's allowed to be.
Oh, okay. Oh, Siri, hello.
Siri started screaming at us. So it'll have, usually it's like a map of the United States, and it'll be like above this line, you can't have the mobile home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then it'll say like rated for X windstorm or rated for, because if you think about it, if you had a home from Wisconsin and Texas, it wouldn't be able to withstand the heat, and it wouldn't be able to withstand if we had high winds or something like that.
It's like built for where it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And usually it's not state specific. Usually it's like, so a trailer in Texas would probably, a trailer in Houston would probably be approved for all of the Gulf Coast, right? Because we all have the same type of weather patterns. But then a trailer in Wisconsin would probably be approved for all of those northern, like close states, to Canada states. So it's not like it's per state. It's more like per weather.
Yeah, like per area.
Yeah, per geographic region. So, all right. Moving to the modular home. This is a home that's prefabricated section by section in a factory setting and then transported to the final home site. I think you kind of mentioned that. It's meant to be a permanent dwelling on a foundation. So once a modular home is completed, it's considered a single family home.
Like it's done. It's going to stay there.
Yes. It's never going to move anywhere. And it is actually considered a single family home. In the state of Texas, now again, check your state, you don't have to disclose that it was a modular home.
So you can just say, oh, this is a house.
It's just a single family home. Yeah. Can be of equal quality to traditionally built homes. I mean, some of them are just perfectly like it's what a builder would do. Yeah. It can come in any shape, size, or style. And then I have a picture here to kind of show you like a crane, like putting the front of the house. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It does look like just a regular house.
Like a normal home. Yeah. As I mentioned, once it is completed, it's considered a single family home. And so it's taxed the same as a single family home. Most modular home companies, we already kind of talked about this, will require you to have land, and some will require you to have foundations. Now there's actually some mobile home build sites, kind of like, like builders, single family construction builders, where they'll be like, you can build your modular home on this site, and they provide the land and they provide the foundation, and you like purchase the whole thing. But it really just depends. Yeah. Having all sorts of issues today. It really depends. So also it depends on how you get the loan, because if you buy on a modular home site, they might finance the loan. You might have to get a construction finance. Like there's just a lot of different things that go into it. So who inspects it? For the initial purchase of the home, it's typically the company does the inspections in the factory. So the home will be inspected in the factory, and then once they build it on site, they'll probably send another person in to make sure everything is like put together. Correctly. Yeah. And then the house is going to fall under a warranty. So if anything breaks, I'm sorry, I'm having serious microphone issues. If anything breaks, the company will come back out and fix it, kind of like a builder warranty.
Okay, that's good.
Yes. Now for resale, remember, this is considered a single family home. So for resale, it's going to be sold as a single family home.
Yeah. So they'll like do a regular.
Yes. Inspection. Regular option period, everything like that. So, which is kind of interesting.
That is interesting, because you would think that it would be different, but it's like.
But it's not. Again, that's the state of Texas. Some states might require you to inform.
You had to say it was a modular home.
Yeah, it was a modular home, but in the state of Texas, they do not. So I know. Sounds like something Texas would do.
Suspicious.
Tiny home, my fave.
Yes.
Big thing, and we already discussed this, but there's no set definition as to what constitutes a tiny home. Yeah. Is it under 500 square feet? Is it under 700 square feet? There's really no like,
law. Like
yeah, it has to be definitely under 1,000.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. It
cannot be a normal living space. It needs to be compact. Now, remember I mentioned that tiny homes kind of have different varieties. So some are on a chassis, some have a foundation, But in general, no matter what, they are always going to be built to be significantly smaller than a single family residence. And that includes a trailer. So when I say you can get a tiny home on a chassis, you're like, well, wait a second, wouldn't that be considered a trailer? Remember, a trailer has to meet certain size specifications.
Yeah, so it has to be smaller than
exactly. That. If the tiny home is smaller than a trailer, it's going to be a tiny home. These houses typically have different features than a single family home that make them more economical to live in.
They're so cute. You
can have them made out of wood. There's some made out of containers. I don't know if you saw that. There's like container tiny homes. Some are like made out of kits. Some of them are on chassis.
Yeah.
They're just a variety, so many different types, and they're all cute.
They're very cute.
Cute and small. What about the property tax for the tiny home? So if the tiny home is small enough, it can actually be considered a camper or an RV, and then sometimes falls under your Department of Motor Vehicles.
Oh, so it'll be like a vehicle.
Yeah, sometimes. It just depends. If the tiny home is larger and on a chassis and is parked on land, then it's taxed the same way that a trailer would be. So again, personal property tax is you don't own the land, so you'd pay personal property tax. Real property tax is you do own the land. And also, if you purchased a tiny home from a manufacturer, you'll usually have to pay sales tax on it. So very, very confusing. Tiny homes kind of blend all the rules together. If the tiny home has a foundation, it's going to be taxed as real property. So if it's sunk, like if it is permanent, it's going to be taxed as a home.
So there's a lot of different factors.
A lot of different factors to consider. So definitely check your state and local regulations. And as Isis mentioned, some places won't let you have tiny homes. So like in the neighborhood I live in, if I were to tear down my home and build a tiny home, they'd be like, no.
What is it?
Yeah, you can't do that.
That would look so funny.
It would look really funny. I looked it up. It's Spur, Texas. That's the town opened it up to the tiny homes. They do have normal homes still there, but they opened it up. And some communities will not let you build them. I know Lake Conroe, for lakefront, there is a rule that it has to be like X number of square feet to be on the waterfront. Oh, okay. So you can't build a tiny home on the waterfront in Lake Conroe.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. I think that's kind of poopy, though.
Yeah.
If I own the land, this is the American in me. If I own the land, I'm going to do whatever I want with it. It shouldn't have to. Exactly. I'm literally paying taxes.
I pay for it.
Yeah. Drives me insane. Okay. So, in Houston, this is the rule for tiny homes. Remember, we said each place has their own rules. So these are the specific rules for Houston. Each dwelling unit must contain a habitable room with at least 120 square feet of floor area. All other habitable rooms, except for the kitchen, must have the square footage of at least 70 feet. Habitable rooms, bathrooms, corridors, hallways, etc. must have a ceiling of at least 7 feet high. And each unit must have a water closet, bathtub, shower, and lavatory. So that lady's tiny home in the video we watched would not be allowed
in Texas.
In the city of Houston.
Yeah. So she doesn't have a shower.
Yes. Yeah. You have to have a full working bathroom in city limits.
Yeah. And I feel like hers was smaller than 120 square
teeny
feet.
Tiny. Yeah. I actually have not seen any tiny homes in city limits.
I don't think I've seen one either.
Yeah.
Maybe in the Heights, possibly. But
those are usually like shotgun homes or kit homes, which are a different type of category of home. People living there wouldn't consider them tiny homes. But like an actual tiny home, I don't think I've ever seen in city limits.
I don't think I have either.
I know they did that on purpose. Like they made these rules on purpose because they don't want them.
They don't want them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people who say that that's like a crusade against the homeless. You know?
Because like, what if they could afford a tiny home?
Exactly.
And they have nowhere to put it?
Yeah, affordable. I mean, tiny homes are going to be the most affordable type of housing. So now you're taking that away from a certain part of the population, which is why Austin allows tiny homes.
That's nice.
Yeah. So, of course, I don't think I've ever seen a tiny home in Austin either.
I don't think I have either. Austin's getting full too, so.
But I don't look in people's backyards because they might be renting their backyards out. Yeah. But yeah. So, if a tiny home is a mobile home, so if it is big enough to be a mobile home, it has to be approved by HUD. It has to have that sticker by HUD. But again, most tiny homes are smaller than the mobile home.
Yeah.
if you are able to get an FHA or VA loan on a tiny home, it's going to be only because the tiny home is on a foundation. Remember, FHA and VA loans have to be on a foundation.
It has to be on the ground.
It has to be a permanent dwelling. Yeah. So hypothetically, you could get a loan from the FHA or VA for a tiny home, but it'd be unusual because most tiny homes don't have concrete foundations.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the loophole there. People don't want their home to be permanent in most cases.
Yeah, they want to be able to move it around.
Yeah. And sometimes they have to because they're renting the land.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
All right. And so that's tiny homes and trailers and modular homes. I love the idea of a tiny home as a vacation home.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I'd love to go vacation in one. I don't know about live in one. Maybe not. But
no, I have too many dogs.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
We both have too many dogs.
Yeah,
too many animals.
I'd be like, please get out of my face. Like,
exactly.
I'm already being smothered by them in a way bigger apartment. So.
And a lot of those tiny homes like have ladders, and I don't want to be climbing up a ladder to get into my bed.
Like, I just want to go like jump in my bed and go to sleep.
I had a loft bed growing up.
Ooh.
So I had to do the ladder to get into the bed. Not about that life.
See, I had a bunk bed, so I had options. Like, do I want to get on the ladder today, or do I just want to stay on the...
In my college years, my mom actually converted my loft bed to a bunk bed because it turned into a guest room, you know? So when I moved home I moved home for 3 months because I couldn't afford rent. I slept in the bottom.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm too old to be climbing up.
It loses its novelty.
Yes. Like as an adult, I do not feel like climbing in and out of my bed, especially in the morning because I only fell out once, like only once when I was in high school did I fall like on the ladder.
Yeah.
There have been a few times where I like missed a step and like kind of fell. Yeah. But only once did I actually like fall off of it. And you only need to do it once. Just be like, I don't want to do this.
No, yeah, exactly.
So, and I could never have a ceiling fan in my room because
then you get scared. You're like, I don't want to get hit by the like ceiling fan.
Yes.
That was always a fear. Like if someone was on the bunk bed and the fan was on, I'd be like, get down. Like,
yes.
Don't go up there.
Our niece had a loft bed in the last house when they lived in Houston, and she got whacked a few times.
She got the little bump.
Yeah, the little bump by the ceiling fan. So, is it time for credits?
Time for credits.
Our intro credit is the Tiny House Movement from Washington State to Washington, D.C. Our music credit is Kevin MacLeod of Incomtech. Our source credit is Thought Company, Home Stratosphere, and Irontown Homes. Check us out on YouTube at Action Home Inspection Group Houston, on Facebook and on Instagram at Home Inspector_Texas, and of course, the TikTok at Houston Home Inspector. Our next topic is going to be condos.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
another kind of house.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, still kind of tiny.
Yeah, still smaller.
But different, completely different rules.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes, completely different rules. So, have you ever, you've lived in an apartment, so you kind of know what.
I've never lived in a condo, but I would. They're not bad, but
I think to me, and we'll kind of go over it. I don't want to give too much away. Yeah. But you have to share everything, like your water lines.
With other people.
Yeah, everything. Okay. So in your apartment, do you ever have those days where they're like, we have to shut the hot water off, and then you just like have no hot water?
Yeah. So it's like the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I used to hate that when I lived in DC. It's like
you get up. Shower.
Yes, you have to take a cold shower, and you're just like, I pay $1,800 a month to take a cold shower, whatever. So until next time, I'm Mary.
And I'm Isis.
And we're the HomeGirls. And we'll talk to you about condos in a few weeks. Yeah, very excited.